So welcome to the big Presbyterian family reunion right here in Detroit. In the past few months, Manly and Ann Olson and I have spent more time on emails and phone and planning for GA than any time since I left the General Assembly. Any time since I left the Twin City Area Presbytery. Manly and Ann, welcome to Detroit. Diane Monger's here with us today. Diane is a friend and a colleague for a very long time. We were classmates together in seminary. And Diane, I've always wondered, do you think the Princeton administration ever did know that we had pet cats living illegally in the dorm rooms with us? We can talk about that later. But then, of course, our feline friends were not the only part, were only a small part of the very menagerie of animals living in the Princeton Seminary dorms, at least back in the day. Now, Janet Edwards is here this morning, too. I first met Janet during my examination for ordination when she was serving on the Committee of Preparation for Ministry in the Pittsburgh Presbytery quite some time ago now. She also participated in my ordination. And Janet, wherever you are, I still remember that question that you asked me during my examination after all of these years. I know Vince Thomas is around here somewhere. Vince, where are you? There's Janet. Vince is somewhere here. There's Vince. Our family has known Vince for over 25 years, and longtime members of Fort Street have known Vince since he was just a very little boy. So Vince, welcome home. So many of other friends and colleagues I have met in just the first few days, and we're only at the beginning of the week, and I'm sure the experience has been the same for you as well. And I'm seeing former students and really enjoying seeing them in so many interesting and important and varied leadership roles in the church, and that is very gratifying to someone who has taught. So welcome everyone. Welcome to Detroit. Welcome to the 221st General Assembly and the great big Presbyterian family reunion. Now, if you've looked around and looked at my stole and looked at the other things here, you might think we forgot to change the liturgical colors in all of our Reich getting ready because they're still red. But here at Fort Street, I think of Pentecost more as a season than just one particular day. So we're still kind of talking about Pentecost here. And I'd like you to think with me again today about that day of Pentecost. Some of you probably have sat with Eric Law as he leads you through a kaleidoscope Bible study on the story of Pentecost. Most of us know the story of how Jesus' disciples are gathered together and then they're filled with the Spirit and they begin to speak in other tongues. But Eric intervenes into your usual way of thinking, challenging you with this question: was the experience of Pentecost a miracle of the tongue or a miracle of the ear? A miracle of the tongue or a miracle of the ear? And suddenly you find yourself going back to the text, loosening just a bit your tight grip on the words they began to speak in other languages. And you start reading as if for the very first time they were bewildered to hear their native languages being spoken. People from all over the world were amazed and astonished, pondering, how does it happen that each of us hears these words in our native tongue? We hear them preaching, each in our own language, about the marvels of God. Amazed and disturbed, they wonder, what does this mean? And Eric Law makes you stop and think, what does this mean? Is this a story about talking or a story about hearing? Is this a miracle of the tongue or a miracle of the ear? Only one time in this story we are reading about being filled with the Spirit and speaking differently. But 3 times we read about the ability to understand someone else, to hear someone else in a way we can really get what they're trying to say to us. We're surprised and amazed, and you begin to wonder how it is that you really understand someone truly different from yourself. And I wonder, if the profound miracle of Pentecost is not so much about speaking other languages or speaking in other tongues, which gets most Presbyterians a little anxious anyway, but if maybe the profound miracle of Pentecost is listening to someone different from yourself and really being able to hear them. Listening in a way that allows you actually to understand, even if you don't agree, to at least be able to understand, to at least be able to listen into the heart, into the soul of a sister, of a brother. About 20 years ago, I was asked to chair the task force for the Twin City Area Presbytery, charged with developing a plan for a 2 to 3 year study and dialogue on human sexual behavior. We were quite a diverse group of 8, with widely differing perspectives on sexuality, sexual identity, sexual expression, and a whole lot of other things like scriptural interpretation, theological truth, the direction of the Spirit in the church, and the witness of the PCUSA in the world. For the first few months, all we did was talk. And I think we talked until we learned to listen. To listen and really hear each other's struggles and joys and the decisions we each had to make in our lives. To listen until we could hear what those most different from us were really saying. To listen until we could pray, and pray absolutely sincerely for one another, whether or not we agreed. To listen until we could hear the heart and the soul of our sister, our brother. When we finally intentionally set our sights on our common goal of developing the plan for the Presbytery-wide study and dialogue, we moved amazingly quickly to produce a really comprehensive plan that all of us could support, including resources and events over a 2-year period for presbytery meetings and pre-presbytery events, for sessions and congregations, and for safe dialogues taking place in several locations all over the presbytery. As I wrote the cover letter for the study, I realized I had spent several months standing on holy ground where the Spirit was moving in amazing ways. Each one of us had been transformed. I don't think any of us changed our minds or our positions, at least not in that moment, but each one of us had been transformed. Learning to listen with genuine desire to understand and to connect, somehow unleashed a power within us and among us. We had experienced the profound miracle of Pentecost. A few years ago, teaching a Doctor of Ministry summer intensive at Columbia Seminary, my class included 14 students, 12 from Jamaica, some clergy, some lay leaders, some from the United Church, some Pentecostal, one PCUSA clergy woman, head of staff, one Reformed Jewish rabbi, and a teaching assistant from Guyana. The class was family systems in the congregation, and we worked with a lot of case studies dealing with issues in all of these various congregations. And some of the issues were not particularly familiar to PCUSA members, like an issue over women wearing jewelry in church and whether or not that was okay, and what to do with those uppity women that wanted to start wearing jewelry in church. But to their credit, the students stuck to the case at hand, looking at the congregational dynamics, not the details of the case, and then offering amazing insights for ministry in each context. Now, during these 2 weeks, many tragedies entered the lives of the classmates. 2 friends of one of the Jamaica pastors was murdered in Kingston. A congregant of the rabbi experienced an exceedingly difficult death while he was gone to be with us. One of the best friends of the Peace USA pastor died instantly in a horrific car accident. The pain and grief in the room were palpable. Every day, in our morning devotions, all of this and more was shared. Every day, classmates learned more about each other's lives, about the situations each one was dealing with, about the challenging circumstances of their work. Every day, we listened to one another with increasing care. And as we listened, the heart, the soul of each one in our little temporary community connected more and more to our own heart, to our own soul. On the last day of class, as we worked on having closure and going our separate ways, the Peace USA pastor said this: "We never really talked about theology. And I think we have a lot of theological differences. But if we had that conversation now, it would be a very different conversation than it would have been if we had had that conversation on the first day of class." And she was absolutely right. We had listened to one another, listening our way into understanding and connection. We had experienced the profound miracle of Pentecost. I long for ongoing transformation experiences and moments in my life, challenging though transformation can often be. So I seek out many different kinds of relationships. I understand my Christian faith more clearly. I become more spiritual in dialogue with interfaith colleagues and friends as I listen to their wisdom and insights and incorporate new ways into my own spiritual life. I understand more fully what it means to be human, to be loved by God, to love another person. When I listen to the struggles and the joys of my LGBTQ sisters and brothers, I come to understand God and the world and myself better when I am immersed in diversity, delighting in intercultural relationship, intercultural dialogue, intercultural community, listening so that I can understand everything differently than I once did, so that I can be closer to knowing the truth. This morning, as I listened to the choir sing "This Is My Song," I was reminded how people all over the world in different lands have different dreams that are just as important as mine. And as I listened to the second mile and watched the second mile, the profound miracle of Pentecost was experienced deep in my heart, those miracles in our lives. And it became important to me as I thought about the many varied people that come into my life and that I need to have in my life if I'm going to be who I am. Second mile reminded me how deeply important that is to me. If I am going to survive as a fully alive, fully human child of God, I desperately need all of these people in my life. And I need to listen, really listen to the message each one has for me, because that message is a message to me from God. So here we are at the great big Presbyterian family reunion, and even though we can look like a pretty homogeneous group, there is a growing diversity among us. For some people, this diversity is just too scary. But I find the diversity so terribly exciting, and I believe this is the path to our transformation. This is the way to our salvation. Sometimes at family reunions, there's some work that has to be done in the family, some things that need to be dealt with, some decisions that need to be made so the family can be healthier and more whole. There is important work before us this week. And I pray for the Spirit's powerful movement, giving us listening ears and listening hearts, that we might hear into the souls of all of our sisters and brothers. Honest, genuine listening is a truly, truly powerful experience, especially when everyone is listening. This is the kind of listening that opens up our lives and creates a joyful, playful space between us and someone else, a space where the Spirit can dance and play and stir us up, transforming our lives, our congregations, and yes, even the PCUSA. I do believe the ability to speak and to speak clearly is a profoundly powerful gift. But to be able to listen so you really hear, really understand, may be even more profoundly powerful. I hope and I pray the profound miracle of Pentecost, the miracle of truly hearing one another, happens in amazing, mighty, marvelous, powerful ways in Detroit and at the General Assembly this week. Will you pray with me? Holy God, stir us up this week with your Spirit moving wildly among us. Ignite the bright flame of your Spirit deep within our hearts. Fill us with passion for the sacred work you entrust to us. Empower us to be the whole people of God. Let us experience a Pentecostal miracle so we have understanding ears that can really hear, understanding hearts that can really connect with the whole people of God. Bring to us the profound truths we need to know in this time and in this place, so that we can truly follow Jesus, truly follow the living Christ. Come, Holy Spirit, come. And all God's people said, Amen.